Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sport and Limerick Soccer Podcast. I don't know about the boys, but I'm certainly showing the gear off here tonight. The new gear I got for the season in support of Treaty United. Noel, we'll start off with yourself this evening. Great cause for optimism, I suppose, at the weekend, Noel, with no place better to start than the 0-0 draw earned at Bray Wanderers. Bray Wanderers, as we suggested, are one of the promotion favourites for the new campaign. It was very hard fought, and as I said to you, definitely cause for optimism to get that draw in Carlisle grounds.
Absolutely. I mean, what a fantastic start for the club as a whole, and obviously for the group. I'm sure, we were obviously watching on the live stream, and you could see the conditions. They were a bit tricky, a bit windy, and that. And I suppose when you are the underdog and you're going into your first game, you'll be happy, if you know your team are up for the battle. And I thought they battled superbly to a man. They fought, like demons, and they got behind the ball and they worked really, really hard. And, you'd worry a bit with the sending off, but, they just got a small bit deeper and they really limited and frustrated Bray. So, to start away from home against one of the favourites to do well in the league, to get a point away from home, to get your first clean sheet. It was probably the perfect day.
Yeah, Jason, you obviously mentioned in previous weeks, maybe you're concerned that Tommy, would not change his ideals. And we felt, that going to, the bigger teams in the division, that obviously that would have to be the case. It was great though to see the defensive solidity and the work ethic, Jason. It must have given you cause for optimism as well.
Oh, it did, Adrian. Look, Tommy knows me a long time, and I love their performances. I love to see a squad digging in and fighting and getting a result. And the organisation was first class. I have to commend Tommy on that. I was very impressed with Ty Ryan right from the beginning. 3 minutes in, coming for a cross, and his punches clearing the box, Adrian. And that breeds confidence to the whole team, I suppose. But you don't want to be singling people out. Obviously, Mark Walsh, someone we hadn't seen a great deal of. He was in that loan many years ago, but that's a long time ago now, and he's been playing junior football since. He did an excellent job with Jack Lynch in the middle, and I was very impressed with Kieran Hanlon. His work rate, holding up the ball, really, really good. And we spoke in previous weeks, I suppose, how important that is for a team who are going to be on the back foot a lot. The two wide players done exceptionally well defensively. You could see even from their runs and trying to get forward and things like that they're out of position, but they had a job to do on the day. They stuck to it to a man, and Tommy won't mind me saying a real Neil Warnock set up from him, which was positive and a great result and a great start. And I was delighted for the lads and delighted for Tommy.
Yeah, obviously, Noel, as well. It was great to see Sean Gearns, Mark Walsh and Anthony O'Donnell, three players that have had experience in the league maybe 8-9 years ago, but very little since then, stepping up to the plate when you were missing, the likes of Joel Custrain, Clyde O'Connell on the day. You needed players to step up. I mentioned that to Tommy, and now at least he knows that if those players are called upon, that they'll certainly be able to do a job for the season.
And that's true, and we were mentioning that during the pre-season as well. That you're looking to see guys in a bit of form, and I suppose his hand was forced a little bit on Sunday with Cole Strain and Clyde O'Connell out, and sometimes you're left with no choice, and you throw these guys in, and they surely paid him back in spades, and it kind of broadens out the squad base, if you like, because I know myself when you're in that situation, you're looking at a guy and you're wondering, should you put him in or should you bring him on? But those guys have really put their hands up now and say, look, you can have 100% confidence in me. If you need me for the start of the game or for the last 10 minutes, whatever, I'm ready to perform. And that's all good news for the squad and the management.
Yeah, Jason, the only downside on the performance was obviously the sending off of Sean McSweeney for 2 bookable offences with approximately 25 minutes to go. It actually kind of created a bit of gloss, added a bit of gloss, should I say, to the earning of the draw the fact that they had to do that with 10 men, I mean, you definitely would have feared the worst, considering it would have been hard with 11 anyway. When Brave were under pressure, it's a massive loss though for the game coming up. And it was the first yellow card, as I mentioned to Tommy, was the real killer, where it was kind of for kind of a bit of an assault, if you want. I know that's a very strong word to say, but catching a player maybe by the throat or by the jersey aggressively. The second one was for a tackle, but it's not something you'd like to see that Tommy can afford maybe to continue throughout the season, and hopefully it was just a one-off situation.
No, I suppose with my own League of Ireland disciplinary record, Adrian, I can't afford to be too harsh, but you'd be disappointed in the first one. Petulance, really. And so soon after half-time would be the worrying bit for me. His body language wasn't great, and like yourself, I was watching it online and doing a few notes, and I actually noted when he was booked, and I noted his body language wasn't great. Probably frustration out of Sean, especially when he sees Kieran Hanlon going off and Ed O'Dwyer going on. And look, no disrespect, Ed, he's not a centre forward. And where is Sean going with the ball when he gets it is probably where that frustration is coming out of. That's making a case for him. Look, it's not good. First game of the season is not ideal. And he's a big player, I suppose, for our treaty, that from an attacking sense that we were looking for, for goals and assists and things like that. And he's going to be a big miss this week against Wexford, that's for sure. Must have been something in the air over the weekend. Glenn McCauley, another one that I said look out for. He got a red card just on half-time for Shells against Galway. So, yeah, look, disappointed in Sean. He'll definitely be a loss, that's for sure.
Yeah, Noel, when I spoke to Tommy afterwards in the post-match press conference, it was clear to see that he didn't agree with our assertion anyway, that we Treaty United could finish 7th or 8th in the division. To be honest, he said that he feels maybe it was a tiny bit too ambitious by the sounds of it. He also said that Treaty would be but the only amateur side in the first division. I'm pretty sure that Cavantilli, Cove, and Wexford in particular would have something to say about that. Noel, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's interesting. All right, I mean, the first thing I'd like to say is I don't actually like that word amateur at all, and I don't think any of those clubs would like to be called amateur. I think you have a choice. You can choose to be professional or unprofessional. I don't think that any of the Treaty guys are unprofessional from what I've seen. They put a massive effort in terms of their conditioning, even outside the training with the club, how they eat, how they rest, the way they mentally prepare. Some really good professionals, I thought, on the pitch. You like Jason said earlier on, you're loath to pick out people, but we've already mentioned Mark Ludden as a real professional. And I suppose, the advantage for Treaty with him is he didn't want to go full-time professional, but I don't think that makes him an amateur. He certainly is a professional as far as I'm concerned, the way he conducts himself and the way he plays. Jack Lynch should be another good example of that. I was a bit surprised with it, to be honest with you, because I'm sure that Tommy sat down with the board, before the start of the season, and they discussed, the budget, and it was all agreed. I think they're in a great position. Tommy has to realise that, a budget in the club is not just about the players. There's obviously other factors to be taken in, like training facilities, match facilities, insurance, the physio and the medic and all that. And I'd like to think, and again, we've mentioned this before, that, this group, this board, they'll be very shrewd in terms of making sure that they honour all their expenses that they're going to have. And to know that as a manager and a player is very, very important, because, we've probably seen too many fictional budgets in Limerick down through the years where they last for about 4 weeks. And I don't think that's, that's not going to happen here. But in terms of comparing ourselves to Cove and Wexford, I think, if you look at Treaty, the nearest League of Ireland club is 60 miles away in Galway or 60 miles away in Cork. There's a massive pick. We've won the best grounds in the country, home grounds, and a massive catchment area. if you want to compare yourself to Cove, like that has kind of the big brother of Cork City looming over them. Wexford have Waterford 25 miles away, who are in the Premier, and a strong Braeside 40 miles away. And I know he mentioned a few loan signings that Wexford have, but the guys that they would have got, in fairness, if they were anywhere close to getting first team football for their parent clubs, they certainly wouldn't be with Wexford. So, I think the budget is done and dusted. It's agreed. And I think it really isn't part of the agenda from now on. The first game is done and dusted. They've got a great point, and they should just focus on what they have and not be comparing, ourselves to the likes of Cove or Wexford or Cabinteely.
Yeah, Jason, I suppose Noel brings up a good point, because to give Tommy and the players their due, as you mentioned previously as well, like they are training up to 4 times a week as well as playing games, which is obviously, a massive commitment. But outside of maybe like Galway and Shelburne, who obviously the players, it's their full-time job, they'll obviously, have maybe better time to recover. Everyone, I suppose, in the first division would be in a similar situation in that respect. And, I suppose that's the thing, that maybe that's why expectation for Treaty as well, because Tommy's done a great job, obviously, in getting, 25 players signed for the season. It was 26. We'll go on to that in a bit, but there was 25 players signed of very decent quality. So realistically, I suppose he probably has to expect that with the performance as well from Sunday, that expectations will rise that little bit as well.
Would, Adrian, and look, we want them to rise. We see the positivity around the club, and we see the growth that there is in Limerick and in the region for senior soccer. It's Tommy's job, I suppose, as the manager, to keep expectations low, which will keep the pressure off himself, I suppose. But when I was asked for my prediction for the season, I'm not going to sit here as a proud Limerick man and say Treaty are going to finish bottom. That's not what I want for the club. I don't think it's what Tommy wants for the club. They're certainly, I'd agree with Noel, they're certainly not amateur in their approach as a club. But as I said, I think it's just his way of trying to dampen expectations, and that every little result then that they get will be a boost. But that'll be the case anyway. Look, there'll be games you'll target for 3 points. That's the approach I would always take. Sunday against Bray was a definite bonus point, because I don't think there's too many that will go to Bray, and especially in the bottom half, and come away with a point. So expectations will rise. We want them to rise. And I suppose Tommy is just trying to keep it on the low down a small bit.
Yeah, Noel, there's Wexford FC do come to town, as we mentioned earlier, Friday evening, first home game of the season. Obviously, a lot of excitement around the city, I can imagine. I know that it won't be the same, obviously, watching it from a stream like it would have been if people were permitted to attend the game. It's a bit of a different game, Noel, in the fact that we went to Bray with zero expectation whatsoever in an attacking sense. Anything would have done. Jason mentioned earlier on, you could tell Matt Keane and Edward Carty were not natural wingers, but it suited us on the day. They worked really hard. They protected their full backs whenever they could. We didn't offer anything going forward, but that was to be expected. There will be more expected of them in an attacking sense Friday night. I'm not saying, we're going to see a massive difference and a goal glut from the team, but, that does bring probably a different pressure, in that the team will be expecting to create more chances, because that just comes with territory being at home anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And also, they're going to have more possession, I feel. They're going to have a lot more possession in this game. It probably will be a lot more open game. We know Wexford lost last week in their first game. Jack Doherty is reputed to be back this week, so he's their Sean McSweeney, if you like, who they didn't have last week. Now, we've seen the goals that they've conceded, and certainly they seem to be fairly weak on the set plays. And you'd look. I already thought that in the preseason, some of the deliveries from Treaty were excellent, and they certainly have a few good targets to hit, with the likes of Kieran O'Hanlon and Jack Lynch and Clyde O'Connell, just to mention 3. So I could see them certainly looking to impact there, but it will certainly be an open game, and it wouldn't be easy to predict the result of that. And in fairness, and we've always said it, you get some mad results, particularly in the first phase of the first division every year. So teams are finding their feet, they're finding a bit of form. There's no kind of pattern, and that generally doesn't come till towards the end of the second series of games. So certainly it's a real 50-50, I think, on Friday night.
Yeah, Jason, I watched the Wexford, and the majority anyway, of about 80 minutes of the Wexford and Cabinteely game on the League of Ireland TV stream back. I didn't watch it live, obviously, but it was interesting. They have three centre backs, Jason, which we certainly know you love. But it was difficult, in my opinion, to make out exactly what way they were shaped outside of that. Like I said it to Noel earlier on, that it felt like it was almost a 3-4-3 with how high Paul Fox was playing in the team, and I'm pretty sure he was supposed to be part of maybe a 5. I'm not so sure. Do you think if it was the case that it was a 3-4-3 that they would be that ambitious going to the Markets Field?
I think they will, Adrian. You know, they were looking at last week, I suppose, and I keep going back to it, like there's priority games for everybody across the season. And if you're Wexford, if you're Cabinteely, if you're Treaty, if you've accepted you're going to be in that bottom 5, then the games against the other bottom 5 teams are priority games, and you want to be getting something out of it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them take the same approach. We saw the conditions in Bray last Sunday, and possibly suited Treaty more than Bray Wanderers. And I was always of the opinion when teams came to the Markets Field that they enjoyed the pitch and they enjoyed the stadium, and they weren't really intimidated coming to the Markets Field. And I think that could be the same again on Friday. Wexford will be coming, they'll be looking for a result. You know, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to Brian O'Sullivan during pre-season, and he's confident enough with the group that he has, and they'll want to bounce back. Noel mentioned that they weren't great from defending set pieces, but Treaty conceded 8 corners last week against Bray, and Wexford's goal against Cabinteely came from a corner, as you know, from a Luke Turner header. So we'll need to tighten up on that side of things. It'd be interesting to see, will Tommy now change the formation, or will he just go same again? You know, because obviously we know McSweeney is out, Clyde is back in, and you'd hope that Joel is back in. And if they're playing 3 at the back, would Tommy be tempted to go like for like up against them? Because he does have the personnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And Noel, that is a vital part of the game in any division, though. Like we were talking about set pieces, like it was, I felt that Wexford really, you know, Cabinteely could have had 3 to 4 goals from it, like in set pieces. And they are a very young side as well. So, you know, they'll obviously, you know, maybe it's down to a bit of responsibility as well. But it's certainly, if we were spotting that, you can certainly be sure that Tommy Barrett and the management team were spotting that, and that'll be an area that they'll definitely be targeting, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll find, I'm sure it was a discussion in Wexford as well, but sometimes it just isn't that easy to fix. And if you do concede one and maybe nearly concede a few more, you know, guys get kind of nervous around them, and, you know, there's kind of a mental block. It can take a while to sort that out. And certainly, you know, at times you need to change the personnel, because for all we know, you know, the organisation is being put down for them, say, in the dressing room during the week, but they're not carrying it out on the pitch. But it might be too soon to say that. But I certainly think that with the players that Treaty have on the pitch, if Clyde obviously plays in that they're going to be a real handful from set plays. I doubt that Wexford will get eight corners either. I think like that's probably down to the fact that Bray really had a monopoly on the possession, and with the wind that was blowing, I suppose it probably gave a bit of an overload in terms of corners. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, it was an interesting weekend across the board, Jason, in the division. I have to say, before the Glenmacauley and even after the Glenmacauley sending off, I was quite impressed by Shelbourne in their 0-0 draw with Galway. Even though I was, I have shown my bias in saying that they might not be in the top 2, but yeah, it was a very good result for Shelbourne, considering Jason, and you know that they would have certainly been the happier, the two sides coming away from that one.
Oh, definitely, Adrian. You know, to lose Glenmacauley that early in the game, they took off Yo-Yo Maddy and replaced him with Michael O'Connor, which was a very good move as well. Michael was very good in the second half, held the ball up really, really well. JJ Luddy in the middle of the pitch looked really good for Shelbourne as well. I was disappointed in the midfield too for Galway, Shane Duggan obviously and Conor McCormack. And it was something that Noel said a couple of weeks ago, and it was apparent on Friday night that Galway are a bit light in the attacking area. And Noel quite rightly said that a couple of weeks ago, and that was evident on Friday night. But I was disappointed, as I said, in the two midfield players. They didn't create a whole pile. There was a lot of sideways passes. There was a lot of backwards passes. We're dropping deep to pick up the ball. And there was a lack of intensity. And I was disappointed in Galway, Adrian, if I'm honest. And I'd agree with you that Shelbourne looked the better side.
Yeah, I have to say, Noel, I totally agree with Jason when he said about maybe sideward passes and backwards passes, because there was very little creativity from Galway when Shelbourne were down to 10 and when the onus was on them to break Shelbourne down. I mean, there was a lot of maybe deep crosses from areas where there was absolutely no angle as well for the players inside the box to attack, and it kind of played into Shelbourne's hands, I felt, as well a bit.
Yeah, and Jason's spot on there, because certainly in the second half there was a monopoly possession for Galway, really, bar a not breakout from Shelbourne. From that point of view, I mean, I think that if I was involved with Shelbourne and I knew the squad I had and I was wondering were they up for the scrap, some of their defending was magnificent and they worked so hard in that second half down to 10 men, and that's obviously vital. So, they probably showed us that they haven't just got a good squad, but they seem to have the real desire to do well as well. So that would be a real flip for the Shelbourne management. I did feel that I saw Shane Duggan, and I thought he played quite well in fairness, but I was surprised that, they tried to get into the box a few times. There was some brilliant defending by Shelbourne, but he never actually got himself teed up, if you like, for one of these trademark strikes from in around the edge of the box. And I thought with 10 or 15 minutes to go, where they'd kind of thrown the kitchen sink at them and nothing really happened, that they didn't kind of work or try and work a situation where he could get a strike or two away for the last 10 or 15 minutes and maybe get the winning goal that way. But I think that they probably would be disappointed after, and it definitely was apparent that there looks like that there's a kind of a lack of goal power in the Galway United team, and it could hamstring their efforts in terms of winning the league.
Yeah, certainly, because obviously Bray can always say that they have Gary Shaw coming back. He must have been carrying an injury, because he was warming up a bit on the sideline all game on Sunday, but he never came on, and they certainly would have thrown him on if he was fit, you'd imagine. But yeah, to move on, I suppose, to the Munster Derby, Jason, Cork City had a 2-1 victory, tight one over Cove Ramblers. But by all accounts, apparently the Cove showed a lot of grit and determination that they had last season as well, and also impressed. But a great start for Colin Healy and Cork City to actually overcome that and get the victory as well.
Oh, definitely, Adrian. We'd expect that in the derby, obviously, that no win should be given. But I think that'll be Cove throughout the season. There's no one going to get it handy off them. That's for sure. Big result for Cork, even though it was, I suppose, a goalkeeper's error maybe that led to the winner. But big result for them, and 3 points on the board that they'll be delighted with.
Yeah, absolutely. Noel, a team that you have picked to finish bottom showed a lot of character as well in getting a 94th minute equaliser at the Belfield Bowl. Adam Whitstead rescued a point for Athlone Town against UCD. Considering, everything that's went on for them in pre-season, that was massive for them confidence-wise, because if you're coming out of UCD with another defeat, it's starting to become almost a habit then if you lose games, even though people say you don't read anything into pre-season friendlies. It can eat into players though, especially if you lose your first competitive game like that. So it was a big turnaround for them with a last-minute goal.
Absolutely, and it was a bit like treaty, if you like, getting the point, it feels like a win. And I always say about a draw, if you're winning a game 2-1 going into the last minute and you end up drawing it 2-2, it feels like a defeat. And if you're 2-1 down going into the last minute, it feels like a win. But, it's the same result and you still have a point. So psychologically, certainly very, very important. But it's still early days. I just hope that that podcast wasn't used as a motivational tool before the game, or maybe at half-time by the Athlone management.
I don't know about that. I heard Declan Considine passed it on to Adrian Carberry to hang it up and hang up a picture of you inside the dressing room. It promises to be another really big weekend in the first division. You've got 4 games scheduled for Friday evening. You've got the one on Saturday night. But to stick on maybe to a prediction for Treaty United and Wexford, it's going to be a very difficult one to call, Jason, because as you said, early in the season as well, and these two teams, no matter what either manager will say, will definitely be targeting the 3 points out of this one. What way, if you were to give a score prediction, do you see it going?
Look, I suppose after last week, the far book was ripped up, I suppose, Adrian, but you have to make a call on it. Look, if you're Tommy Barrett, you're at home to Wexford, they're going to be in that bottom 5 with you. You've got to be targeting it for 3 points. He's not going to admit that. We know Tommy already. He's going to play things down, and he's going to say about the squad being late and fitness and behind everybody. But listen, in reality, they've got to be looking to win the game. They have to be, and that has to be seen in their performance. And they have to be on the front foot. Great to see Joel. Look, fingers crossed that he is back. But the word coming out of the camp is he will be available. Having Clyde O'Connell back in there will be a great asset also. Look, there won't be much in it, Adrian, and I don't think there's a whole pile of goals in this Treaty team. So Treaty by a goal would be my hope. I'd definitely take a point again if I was Tommy.
Would you agree with that, Noel?
Yeah, I think Jason's right. I was kind of mulling over a score in my head, and I suppose I'm thinking of a 2-1 victory for Treaty in what's going to look to me is going to be kind of a very open game. I think both teams will create probably more chances than we think, but it's one thing to create them and another thing to convert them. So probably a narrow home victory. I think that's important as well. I mean, obviously they've gone away from home and got a point, but they need to think about, making the Marcus Field a fortress and making sure that while teams may enjoy looking around it, when they arrive and think it's a great stadium, that they certainly won't enjoy their time during the match.